Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everybody to the stream. My name is Mike D'Angelo, aka That Tellest Guy. I hope everybody is ready to do some chatting. We're talking Tellest today. Specifically, the theme of today's episode is we're going to be talking about some of the sigils from the Tellest universe, some of the cool art that we got from our buddy Francois Just, and we'll also talk about the cities and the regions that come from that area. I wanted to welcome the people who are already on the stream. If you want to talk about other stuff while I'm discussing things Tellest related, definitely feel free to jump in. We're talking Tellest, but I have a feeling that we're not going to go a full half hour talking about, like 9 or 10 sigils. So we can chat other stuff while we're playing. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the very first sigil that we had made. We ended up making a sigil for Adelatha, which is the city that really a lot of the early Tellest stories took place in. Baldur's Gate is kind of like the big city that everybody knows a lot of the D&D stories for. And Adelatha is the big one for the Tellest universe. So a lot of the heroes kind of originate from there, or at least near there. Their sigil is a yellow phoenix on a blue field. So we've got a couple of different options when it comes to a lot of the work that we had Francois work on this stuff for us. So we've got your kind of tried and true classic, just simple sigil, and then we had a couple of other things. Like we had a couple of like canvas looking things for the background. We had some chipped paint looks, and we had some painted looks. The painted looks ended up being my favorite overall. So anytime you see any of the sigils like on the art gallery, it's always the painted version. We kind of try and tell a story with each of the posts that we have the sigils representative of. So like we'll have things like, why would a canvas flag be used for that city or that region or anything like that. Typically it's, something that has to do with towers or boats or something like that. Adelatha is kind of landlocked, so you don't really see a lot of something like that. And we've definitely, you can see here, everything goes pretty quick in this post, but later on when we're talking about this kind of stuff, it gets really busy and we talk about a lot more of the ins and outs of the city. So it really wouldn't do to just show you pictures and move on. So one of the things that I wanted to show you was the way that we've integrated this into the world of Tellest. So we do have the pictures here, but if you go to our world anvil, you can specifically go to like just about any map that we have and kind of play around with things. So one of the layers that we have is the city layer, and if you make sure that that's active, you'll be able to see all the cities that we have sigils for. So you can see Adelatha is kind of like primed and ready to go right here in the center, and you can see when you click on one of these guys, it'll give you like a nice little header. It'll give you some information about the city, and then you can actually go in and you can read the full article if there's one associated with it. There's so many cities and everything in the world of Tellest that I haven't gotten to writing an article for all of them, but this gives you kind of like a quick tour of the world and this part of the world, and just kind of helps you dive into it a little bit better. So you can see Adelatha, because it was our first big city, this one's got a lot of information. This was originally taken from the encyclopedia entries that we made on the Tellest website, and now World Anvil has just kind of become our world Bible in a way. So we're going to start to integrate some new pictures into this and everything like that. We have Tower Sphere, which is making a big presence in the world of Tellest. We'll start to associate that into World Anvil and things like that. And this will just be kind of like a fun way to show you various places in the world of Tellest and where they fit into things. I am going to give you a real quick peek at some of the other stuff that you can see on the World Anvil. Some of this is restricted to patrons of a certain level, like they get like a boost to being able to see certain things, but previews are absolutely free. So you can see Tellest has got a lot of characters. So what we have here is our characters layer, and this is also just for one continent. We know that the world of Tellest is much bigger than just Draconis, so we have this one place that kind of shows you where all these characters are. And if we get rid of the characters, you get to see how many people were just kind of densely packed into certain areas. We can also look at some of the artifacts that have shown up in the world, so you can see they've appeared in a lot of places as well. And we have a couple of other things, like we have some writer-ready characters. So these are typically characters that were introduced in Quantum Quest, and I give those to some of the writers who do some short stories for us as kind of an option if they wanted to write a story without a brand new character. These characters have a little bit of backstory, and they can kind of play with that, and that gives them an option that they could work with. And then if you really wanted to, you could do something like that shows you the kingdom names. We also have the territory influence and border layer, so you can see just how far everything kind of reaches. And we have that typically for every one of the maps that we have showing up on the World Anvil, but we'll get to that as we push along. But for now, we'll close that off, and we'll head to the next sigil. So that was Adelatha. Next up, we are going to go to Blacklane, which is marked by this white bull on a black field. So if we look here, these were a couple of the versions that Francois gave us early on. We have like kind of like this brushed metal look, and then we have our canvas look, our chipped paint, and our painted version. I think early on, the phone background that you have here, so you can go to our website and you can just download. Yeah, I did use Incarnate. I'm not as good with the. I feel like I've practiced a lot more with the battle maps than I have with these maps, and these were originally black and white maps that I changed into parchment. This was someone. I think it was Kay Fulmer was the artist who worked on the cartography. Now Draconis is markedly different than what we have for some of our other maps, just because Draconis has always been so busy. So you'll see, like when we visit a couple of the other places, there's just so much going on here. It's very busy looking. But what I did was I took all the parchment versions that he made and then created a new map, because I knew that things were going to change. Not all the things that I write are going to make the most sense, so I have to be able to be flexible with them and change them as I go. But so we talked about Blacklane. Blacklane is all the way up here. Technically, all of this is Blacklane. The map itself, or the sigil itself, is specific to this capital city up here of Karthus. You'll see here, I have an article that's associated with it, but there's no information with it. Lot of information that I still need to plug into the world, but this at least gives me an idea of like where things are. Karthus has shown up in a couple of the stories so far. Not necessarily like the city proper or anything like that, but we've seen the castle, we've seen the ruler, we've seen a lot of those things. Some of our stories have taken place in Blacklane itself, but not so deep as Karthus, except for, those brief like epilogues and certain things. So we know that we're going to spend more time there. We've seen some more Tower Sphere stuff up on the northern end of Karthus. So actually on the northern end of Blacklane, I should say, because it's technically not part of Karthus. It's a little further up. The top part of this island, this continent, had fallen into the sea a while back, and there's ruins that are just to the south of the coastline, and that is where their Tower Sphere arena is. Adelathus is right in the middle of the city, so you don't have anything crazy going on there. Our next sigil that we're going to talk about is Forcynthia. Forcynthia is probably the most important in the newer set of books that we've been working on, because it's been the site of 3 of our books thus far, including the one that I just released 2 weeks ago, Wild Magic. So Forcynthia's sigil is like a nice little flower on a purple field. Forcynthia is kind of known for its fortress, and it's known for its wildflower fields. So the flower within like the diamond shape kind of evokes both of those ideas in the design. And Francois did an awesome job with each of these things. Early on, we didn't do too much by way of giving him a lot to work with, and he still came up with lots of good ideas for us. So you can see Adelatha and Forcynthia not too far away. There is a river that kind of ends up leading Forcynthia into Viscosa, which is the actual capital of Raleigh, but Forcynthia is actually in a separate continent, or a separate country rather. Forcynthia is in Daltane. So if we go into the territory, influence, and borders layout again, you can see the river itself is kind of what separates the two of them. And we've had a couple of places that our main character in the Mageborn series has gone. She's gone to the west where Folly's Glen is. She's gone to the south where this city Sun Garden is. And then she's gone to the very far southwest over here. This is the island of Raylani and the Okalacho Islands. That's the archipelago that takes place in. So we've gone a long way from Forcenthia, and we're going to be exploring some other directions and follow-up Adelia books in the future for sure. So another one of those sigils that really doesn't have a lot of information with the associated article yet, but with 3 books worth of information, there is going to be a lot. I just need to find some time to scratch that itch a little bit. The good news is that we've got articles that are drafted out through almost the end of 2024. Once I'm a full year ahead of myself, that's when I'll be able to start pushing off into other places like these articles and things like that. It'll give me more time to play with that kind of thing. So we'll go into Argos next. Argos is another one of the cities that we've spent a little bit of time in because it is the site of our Heart of the Forest prequel, Silver Serpent Chronicles. Our character Kelvin Dracos is the prince of Argos, and we've not quite seen a lot of the sigil in play yet. We did see we've seen this sigil show up in one of the Mageborn books, and it's very likely that in the map that we're working on tomorrow and Wednesday, the Argos sigil is going to end up on one of the sails of the boats, because Argos, because of its proximity to the sea, has a very big naval force. So a lot of merchants, a lot of naval vessels, they end up with that banner on their sails. So we are probably going to be playing in an area around here in the battle map that we're making this weekend. So it only makes sense that this would end up there. We might end up with a conflicting sigil as well, because Argos and Paradis on this island, they're not very friendly. So it'll be interesting to have those 2 boats side by side. It could make for a fun experience within whatever D&D scenario you're playing. So yeah, Argos, because of their kind of seafaring look, we gave them that trident. If you go to here, you get a little bit more information. I don't know if we ever went full on crazy with it. You can see there's a lot of stuff missing. There's some stuff that I had set out for myself to be able to give more information about, but just some very basic information. Next up, we'll talk about the Thunder Fury Dwarves. You can see that's our 5th sigil today. There's going to be a couple that we're going to skip because they're not present-day sigils, or relative to cities or regions or anything like that. But we'll hit up on some of that as we go. But the Thunder Fury Dwarves, they were important because they are the site of our Son of the Storm characters, Dorn, Eli, Bolt. In the Golden Scale Cliffs, this is the sigil that they have. We actually have a Tower Sphere character, I believe, who we're going to put some art up very soon, done by our friend Sergey, who does all the Quantum Quest guys. He worked on some of our Tower Sphere stuff that we're going to be showing off soon as well. The runic hammer look suits the clan of the Thunder Fury Dwarves very well, and if you're here on this page, you'd be able to see a little bit more information about, how they use the sigil, where it shows up, that kind of thing. As always, the painted version is my favorite. If we go to the World Anvil, you can see they're a little ways northeast. They're the farthest on the east coast that we have so far. Not a lot of information on their article yet either. But again, because we've spent so much time with them, that's not to say that I don't have a lot to say about them. I just don't have the time to write anything about it. But we will be spending some more time with them. I don't know for sure if it'll be next year, because we have a couple of other books that are on the way. We've got the Quantum Quest novelization that's going to be coming out in October, and then a couple of short stories that are going to frame that, because we have to have our Halloween story done, and we have to have our Christmas Chronicle done. The next book that I'm going to be working on after that is going to be Rhianna's Whispers of the Weirdwood, rather. And then after that, we're going to be following up on Heart of the Forest, and we'll be returning. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not Heart of the Forest. It's Silver Serpent is the first book that I'm working on. Heart of the Forest sequel will be coming up a little bit after that, but and then finally after that, next year is going to be. We did half of the work on the story that I was working on when COVID first hit, called The Whispers. So we're going to have a couple of Whispers stories coming up. But The Whispers was a story that was written by committee, so to speak, because the choices at the end of each chapter were made by the readers on a month-to-month basis. So if you're listening to this stream, next year when we resume work on Declan's story, The Whispers, you could be one of the people that helps to dictate which direction Declan's story takes him. So that'll be a little bit of fun. So we spent some time with the dwarves. Now let's head to the elves. So the Whisperwind elves, this is our 6th sigil. They were the site. That sect of elves is responsible for bringing us characters like Vinathrun and Naralindra, because they are both of the Whisperwind elves, and then we've got Maravek and Faradorn. Well, Faradorn's actually, we meet him in Lustra, but Maravek and Vandalus, we meet them in Awake, spend a little bit more time with them in Arise, things like that. The Whisperwind elves, they're known for their ability to travel to anywhere that they've been in the world of Tellest up to twice per day. If you've been following us for a little bit, you might remember that the elves of Tellest, they ended up banishing magic by accident from the world of Tellest, and even now that it's come back into the world, they've kind of been punished by the rituals that they've enacted. So elves, all of them have some kind of magic, but it's greatly reduced to the point where they can't use it the way that they once could. It used to be that the Whisperwind elves would be able to travel anywhere they wanted in the world as much as they wanted to, and now that's been severely diminished, and they can only do it once or twice. So the sigil itself has kind of like a windy element to it. Francois gave us like these swirls of wind, and a lot of times when you see like Vinathrun in art, you get to see like leaves swirling around her and things like that. I think this is another one of those things where we don't really talk a lot about it, just because there's just so much to say, and I haven't had a chance yet. But the Whisperwind elves are part of Avenadil. You'll see a lot of the apostrophe Adil usually means that it's part of like a forest or something like that. The Adil is kind of like a forest. Same way as you might see, we've got like Hillheim. Usually the Heim means that it's a gnomish town or something like that. So we'll move on to Siphenadil, and we'll look at down here. This was the White Citadel in Heart of the Forest. So we've got a different color scheme. We didn't want to go with a straight up green again, so we've got this look here. We were experimenting with a little bit of a different look in our second wave of sigils. This marks our step into that second wave. So we've got things like this where we did like some stacked tapestries and things like that. But for the most part, we kept to kind of like the same look. We lost the chipped paint look for a little bit, but we do resume that in following waves. So Siphenadil, again, it was a big focal point in Heart of the Forest. It later became a big focal point in Wild Magic. The elves of Siphenadil know a couple of the people who we've played with, so they're friendly with Icarus, who's been our central character in The Fall, and he's played a minor character in Heart of the Forest. And then we know that Gaston knows the elves of Siphenadil because he has some familiarity with them in Wild Magic. So we're at the point, I'm going to actually move Kahara to our last step just so that we can stay on this map for a little while. But we're moving on to Saramore. Saramore is the site of two of our books. We've got Stealing Saramore and the preceding book, Tinker's Tale. That is where we've met Maximus and Richard Lenner, who are the characters from that book that kind of introduce us to the concept of the Knights of Virtue. That was like an 8-person group that ended up doing some world-saving stuff earlier on in the timeline. The Tinker's Tale and Stealing Saramore books are so far back in the timeline that's before they became the Knights of Virtue. So it's kind of a little prequel story, and then the Maximus stories are kind of framed in such a way that we get to see some new stuff and some old stuff side by side. And we get to see, kind of present day Maximus and what he's been working on. And that kind of gives us the reasons for why he is, so dead set on making sure that there's a healthy horse that he can always ride in the form of Equinicus, his clockwork horse. So, got a doggy in the room. Oh, I got multiple doggies in the room. Would you like to say hello, Luna? Would you like to come up here? Come here. Let's introduce you to the world. Oh, why are you sweaty? Doggies aren't supposed to be sweaty. We are going to let you say hello. Are you ready? Are you ready for your big break? Say hello to the people. You good doggy? You good doggy? Yes. So I have a couple of my animals who are very, very nice about letting me write and stuff like that. Luna is the one detriment to all of that. I can't do any writing when Luna's around. Luna is famous. I had Zelda up here. Zelda, do you want to say hi? You want to say hi? No? You want to go downstairs? You come up here? Do you want to say hi to the world? Come here. Up. Come on. Up. You can make it. There you go. Now you're famous too. Say hello. Say hello. Hello there. Hello there, Zelda. So Luna was just up here. She doesn't like sitting on my lap when I'm filming, but this is Zelda. Zelda is our oldest pup. She turned 10 earlier this year. She's a very happy lap dog. She doesn't like posing for the camera right now, but she's a very good doggy. Yes. She's very much named after the game series and everything like that. She will sit here and just kind of chill while I'm talking about the stuff. So I will, let's head back to the world of Tellest, and maybe she'll still be sitting here when we're done. We only got a couple sigils to go. All right, let's head back. So we'll move on from Saramore. Oh, I love Zelda the series as well. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, 2 masterpiece games. I'm very excited to see where they go from here, having experienced those other 2 games earlier. But I also have a sore spot in my heart for the older games. Link to the Past is like one of my favorite games of all time. I'm still waiting for another old school style, 2D top-down Zelda again. I mean, they zigzag back and forth from those, so I'm excited for something like that again, but we'll see what happens. So we're going to the other side of Draconis. Well, at least this side of Draconis. We're going to step over this way into the desert region of Raleigh, and we're going to talk about Fosterville. Fosterville is one of those places that I do have a nice big article about. Fosterville is known as the City of Orphans. It is because they've got this thing called the Death Winds out in the desert that if it doesn't kill you, it drives you insane. And we talk a little bit about that in the article here for Fosterville. Yeah, this is based on the map of my books and everything. So everything that I've said so far usually pertains to something in the books. We haven't really stepped too far outside of these places where at some point we started to kind of explore the characters from Quantum Quest. So let's see if we go back to this world here. So like the Undermire hasn't been in any of the books. We have some brief stuff in like the earlier encyclopedia stuff for Ugitrin, but haven't done anything there. Vesa we talk about a little bit. Yeah, for the most part, Kalados. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, Draconis is one of those places where we really haven't seen too much that hasn't been in the books. Like every one of these sigils, it's something that we've explored before. Fosterville is a place that is in like the old Legacy timeline, and we spent some time with Hokeland of Crescentshire, who's a pretty cool character who has the ability to see through other people's eyes. That's his home, and we spent some time with the Sultan and his children there. We're going to be playing a little bit more with them in the new timeline, because I think Hokeland's going to get his own story. It's going to kind of flesh him out a little bit more. But we did spend a little bit of time there, and As Darkness Falls, things like that. And then what we have to do actually is at this point we have to step back a little bit, and we're going to show off. So in Savion, that's our final sigil. So this is the sigil for the Kahara Desert. So it's got a dragon, but it's not actually the home to dragons. It's the home to a tribe of Kaja, who are our cat folk. They are known for making like a bond with a dragon group. And that's the source of our story, Dragon Speakers. So if we throw on the character stuff here, we can see a couple of characters. I haven't done all of them yet, because we're adding new characters all the time. You can see a couple of the ones from up here in Valtiga. We've got some quote-unquote writer-ready characters, so you can see some of our Quantum Quest characters here and there. And we've introduced some new characters down here as well, so we're going to have to play with that a little bit. I don't know where that is, but that didn't need to be there. But yeah, so Kayonani is the lead character in the Dragon Speaker stories, and Kahara is the oasis that she... Well, the Kahara Desert itself is kind of like the region, and she's known as the Cat of the Kahara. So we can see in here, for a long time, this was one of my favorite sigils that we had, and we added a couple of other cool ones over the years, and we'll be showing them off in Sigil Watch 2 and 3 and 4. We'll probably talk about 10 sigils every time. I don't know necessarily that we'll talk about in great length things like these two, so I might just talk about them now just to kind of, explain a little bit about what they are. But so the one over here with the purple and the hourglass, that's representative of the Void Walkers. So that is, we did a anthology early on called Tales of Tellest Volume 1, and it focused on kind of like a way to make sense of why all of our stories were in the same book. We introduced Nersha and Reese. Nersha is the Keeper of the Void, and basically she's in charge of all of time in the Tellest universe. And Reese ends up stealing one of her orbs of the Void and ends up shattering it into pieces and ends up traveling through time. Sometimes he sees glimpses into some of the other stories that we've written. Most of the time it's like, if anyone's ever seen the show Sliders or the show Quantum Leap, or even a little bit of the show or the manga Inuyasha, it's got elements of all of those things, as Reese is kind of going through time trying to pick up shards of the orb and recreate the orb so that he can get back to the life that he knows. And then the other one is the sigil for Chandronar. Oop, our other doggy's barking down there. The other one is Chandronar. Chandronar is the floating continent from Tellest before it separated into Tellest and Earth. And back then it was, one of the more prevalent continents on the world of Tellest, but because of the events of the fall, it ended up falling into the sea. That wasn't a lot of fun for a lot of people. And just, after time, it sunk into the sea, and no one's seen it since, and that's why we don't see the sigil anymore. We have a couple of the elves who were known from Chandronar who still show up here and there. Most famously, of course, is Icarus, who's still around in present day. He's one of the oldest elves that we have, and that's his sigil, although he doesn't really go by it anymore because, very painful reminder and all that. So we kind of looked at 12 sigils today. Going forward, we'll probably look at 10 instead, just because it'll allow us to spend a little bit more time in places that we've seen and explored in the books and the stories and things like that. I think most everything else that we look at is like an actual present day city, region, group, that kind of thing. So we won't have to worry about kind of skipping over those kinds of things. But that is going to be it for kind of like the presentation part of this episode. If we want, we can still chat. That's perfectly fine. And then we'll keep it tight today because so much of what we're going to be doing this week is I'll be playing the new games that are coming out. I don't think that I'm going to be able to beat Jedi Survivor within the next 5 hours. So I think we're going to probably get as far as we can tonight on that before I get sleepy and pass out. We'll play a little bit of that. Tomorrow, Sea of Stars comes out. That's a game that I kickstarted, and actually one of our characters from the Tellest universe is in that game. And just as a statue, so nothing too crazy or anything, but I really want to try and see if I can fight my way to finding that before Starfield comes out later this week. And then I had heard earlier this week that game is like 50 hours long just for the main story, and that like 80 hours at least is how much time you can dump into side quests and things like that. So I can imagine that for most of September, I'm going to be playing Starfield and exploring that universe. And, here and there I will bounce into some of the other games that I have yet to beat, like Star Wars, like Sea of Stars, like Pikmin. There's tons of stuff that I have to do. And then hopefully all 4 of those I can wrap up before Mario Wonder comes out in October. So we'll have to see what that's looking like. I'm going to leave the chat open for another minute or two, and then I'll head downstairs and we'll explore that a little bit and play a little bit of Jedi Survivor. I think I'm only in like chapter 3, and I think there's 6 chapters in that game, so I don't know how far we're going to get in that, but you make me the chucky milk. Yes, please. I don't know why we went French, but all right. I am going to let this go for about 15 more seconds, and then we will. It does work. Sean? Did you seriously show up just to watch me close the show? Are you going to jump over and watch me fail miserably at Jedi Survivor in a couple minutes? Wonderful. You can egg me on. You can either hype or hinder. I'll let you decide. All right. We are going to switch to our closing the show. Give me 1 second while we get everything prepared. All right, so on the screen, you should see all the places that you can find me and the stuff that Tellest does. On the screen, all the Tellest and That's Entertainment content. To find anything else out about the Tellest fantasy universe that you want, you can go to Tellest.com. For the battle maps that my brother and I create, you can go to patreon.com/Tellest to see my streams live. You can be sure to check me out here on Twitch at twitch.tv/ThatTellestGuy. To see all the streams I've ever done for Maps and Talking Tellest, you can check out my YouTube channel. And the doggies are on... yeah, I do have to put that up there. Anyway, to see all my streams for Talking Tellest and the maps, you can see me at youtube.com/@worldoftellest. For our video game content, you can go to thatentertains.com, or I'm a little bit behind just because I haven't beaten Jedi Survivor yet. That's probably going to be the next review that I do, but that's going to be youtube.com/@That's Entertainment Games, excuse me. And then to find all of our awesome merchandise, including high-quality mouse pads, handcrafted magic wands, battle maps, posters, and more, head to our shop at etsy.com/shop/Tellest. I don't think... there's another one that I have to clean up. I haven't done that yet. And then Rihanna wanted me to say the doggies are on TikTok at Full House of Fluff. So that's a cute place to see all that stuff. She's also got a TikTok that she should have put up for her wands, but she didn't do that. But you should be able to find all that stuff on the Etsy store, and you can actually just go to www.weirdwitchwands.com. That's here. I'll put that in the chat just so that later on, if people want to see it, easy place to find all that cool stuff. I'm just hovering over the image and seeing the weird logo that's flipping around. The dogs are more entertaining, but you can't buy our dogs. They are not for sale. All right, I am going to switch this to our outro, and then we will take a 5 or 10 minute, and then we'll be scouring the galaxy for collectibles. Until next time.